Hey, Mr. Blodgett, how are you? I am literally out of breath because I've been running around getting this demo set up. And, it's been quite a day. Mr. Dennis, how are you? Maximum Engineering, welcome aboard. Happy Mother's Day. Hey, listen, I owe everybody an apology. I never even thought about the fact that today was Mother's Day, so I won't keep you from your mom long, if that's where you're at. We'll have a good time here and move on. How you doing, Tuck? So, yeah, did everybody do their homework? Did you do your homework? That's what I want to know. I'm good, Dennis. Thank you very much. Monochromatic lights. Okay. Best comment of the day so far. Outstanding. Yeah. There's more info coming there, Tuck. I learned a whole bunch. Hey, greetings, Alexinko. I hope everything is well with you. If you need anything, let us know. Southpaw, precisely imprecise. Nice to see you. Acro Method, welcome aboard. You sound like somebody I was recently talking to. Chris, howdy. So, we'll give everybody a little time to get in here, but you know what the topic is today: monochromatic light sources, and I've got them here. We've got them all here. What I was hoping to do today is talk a little bit about the results of my experiments. Certainly talk about why we're doing it, because I think one of the challenges is I went off on a tangent and never really explained what the hell's going on. Most of you figured it out. Collect them all. Yeah, no fooling. We have three. We actually have four. 1, 2, 3. No, we actually have 5 monochromatic light sources here that we could talk about today. Hey, Warren, welcome aboard. Haven't seen you in 24 hours. 48 hours. So, if you guys hadn't figured it out, we're not in the shop today. We're up in my lab, and one advantage is that it's a little quieter. Yes, you are in the secret laboratory. It's not that secret. Some of the stuff in it I can't share, but the lab is here to use. JF Machinery, welcome. Yeah, 48 hours. Confirmed. So, let's see. 104. What's everybody doing today? Tell me, are you in the shop today? Are you with Mom? What's going on? I'm going to flip the camera around while you tell me. Yeah, so this is what the lab looks like. This is RF stuff, right? So we've never been up here before. You're working today, Wes. Jeepers. Let's see. We got spectrum analyzers, signal generators, function generators. This is a special signal generator. Warren's doing yard work. Excellent. With your wife. Happy wife, happy life. Noise figure measurement. Some more signal generators. These are amplifiers. This black box, omelette du fromage. You know, I had 3 fried eggs this morning with a magnificent bagel, which I don't eat a lot of bagels, but this was magnificent. The black box right here above the amplifiers is the GPS reference for the lab. So that's time and frequency. Time is distributed all over the place here by network, and frequency, there's some cables in the back that go to all the instruments. So we have a frequency reference that's good to 1 part in 10 to the 9th, easy. So 1 hertz at 1 gigahertz. And then let's see, go around this way. There's another network analyzer, power meter, oscilloscope, power supply, digital multimeter, power supply. I don't think I've ever shown any of that here, but there you go. So that's the lab. When I'm doing my day job, I'm either in here or in front of the computer, which is boring. But we're in here today, and we've got... hey, Adam, welcome aboard. I was waiting for you. So 1, 2, 3. Where's number 4? 4 and 5. So we've got 5 monochromatic light sources today. I hope everybody did their homework. Did everybody do their homework? I have to tell you, it's actually cathartic to be able to say that to somebody else. Sometimes it helps to give the grief and not be getting the grief. Anyway, so let's see over here. So Dennis's answer is yes, question mark. Grimace. Practical Renaissance, welcome aboard. Let's see, switch this around. The dog ate your homework, Warren. I actually believe that. So we have a computer here, which is unimpressive, but it is connected to bing, the ASEC instruments. LR1-B, 16-bit spectrophotometer. This is an optical fiber cable that is hanging around with a sensor, actually just a diffuser, taped to a chopstick from my bench, because I was holding this in a vise, and therefore I will leave it taped to a chopstick. Now the critical thing in all of these monochromatic measurements and development is this chopstick. Real bamboo. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on here. It's 8 minutes after. Actually, I'll wait until we get 10 minutes after to get into the meat of it. We also have a couple of optical flats, which are, old, and those who know where these came from, which is basically eBay a long time ago. So we're going to use that to generate some fringes and evaluate how our monochromatic light sources work. So Adam, are you... I'm looking for your thing. Okay. Are you... can I bring you in later to talk about... to wrap up the monochromatic stuff? Because you're sort of one of the guys I've been researching in the work I'm doing. So let me know if you're available to pull you in a bit. Okay. So, hey, thank you, Mazza Smith. Figure 40 minutes after the hour to kind of join me in a summary of all this nonsense. Anyway, let me know. It's no pressure. We're gonna have a good time here. Anyway, okay, it's 10 minutes after. Lock the doors. Okay, thanks, Adam. I will keep an eyeball on the clock. Hey, if anybody sees that I forgot that it's 40 minutes after the hour, just let me know. So, welcome. So, we don't have a guest today. Adam may be our guest today. We didn't have anything planned, so I'm sort of snagging him. But I got really interested in doing some lapping and doing some some flat stuff to an even higher level. And it's a disease, of course, being interested in everything. So a while back, Tom Lipton did a video on making laps using the 3-plate method. And that was interesting to me. And then I've been following everything, of course, that Robin does on lapping, practical lapping. And he opened my eyes to some real fantastic ways of thinking about things. And he was a guest two lives ago. That sounds weird. 2 IG lives a couple of weeks ago. Maybe 3. I can't remember. But anyway, he did a great job. And he taught us a lot about lapping from a practical point of view. He's doing this. I don't know if I could say that he's doing it weekly, but he's doing it almost weekly in his day job. So I got interested again, and I picked up all the stuff that I collected, and I started scratching my head. You may have seen on my feed, my Instagram feed, that I ground some laps that I had bought a while back, and I bought 2 pairs of laps, all of them 6-inch squares, and I surface ground one of them to get it flat, and lapped a couple of things and had a good time and put it away. But then when I spoke with, and we invited Robin to speak to you about laps, I realized that his philosophy, which is brilliant, is to use laps in pairs. Now, one thing I've learned over the years, I've never done this personally, but guys that make their own telescopes grind their own mirrors, and they will buy a barrel. It used to be a wooden barrel. I guess I heard recently it's a 55-gallon barrel, a 55-gallon drum, and they'll put a mirror blank secured on the barrel, and then they'll take another mirror blank and put it on top of it with appropriate polishing, compound grit, and they walk around the barrel and they work the 2 blanks together, and they end up getting a curved surface. It naturally tends to become concave on top and convex on the bottom, and that has to do with the grinding process. Here's the key: of 2 similarly sized laps. Interesting. So stick that in your head and think about what Robin taught us a couple of weeks ago, which is when you put 2 laps together, the top one will naturally become concave and the bottom one will naturally become convex. You could always flip it, and then you will tend to start going the other way. So that means a couple of interesting things. Round laps. Yes. The telescope makers are using round laps and a round barrel. Try to find a square barrel. So by figuring out, I'm just going to wave my hands, which of your working laps is the one that's concave. If you want to start reversing that process, you flip them over, and now that should start going the other way, which means at some point it's going to go through flat, which means you have a way to manage the flatness of your laps by having a pair of them. Now, the reason I bring this up and before I go any further on what Robin said, because it took weeks to sink in, this is distinctly different from the three-plate method. The three-plate method inherently gives you a flat surface. But Robin's point was, you don't really care about a flat surface. You care about a flat workpiece. Or, if you're the telescope builder dudes, you actually don't want flat. You are grinding to a certain curve. Yeah. So I thought about it, and I woke up one morning and I realized, and I made a comment to somebody. Somebody pointed out that either they asked about the three-plate method and how that related to what Robin was doing, because he only has two laps. But what I realized is the work piece is the third piece. So here's what Robin, here's what I heard from Robin. You lap your work, and now you measure your work, okay? And you look at how the work is going. And if the work is coming out convex, that means your lap is concave. You can switch to the other lap, and it'll go the other way. So you need your two laps, you need your workpiece, and you need a way to measure it. And what we didn't spend a lot of time talking about with Robin was the way to measure it. So then I got thinking about laps and optical flats and measuring flats. We talked to Adam, and Adam told us about some really cool stuff he was doing. We sort of were doing general discussions, but it turns out that Adam did the monochromatic light source hack with the portatrace a while back. I missed it because my brain wasn't there, and John Grimsmo picked up on it, and he built one. So this past week, I was able to do a few things and further that work. I see this as an extension of that work. Well, Warren says you need Robin's electronic indicator thingy to measure. Actually, in the basement lab, in the temperature controlled area, I have a Brown and Sharp electronic measurement setup and a very small 1 foot by 1 foot grade A plate. So I'm sort of set up to do that downstairs, but we're not even there yet. I mean, the thing is, the optical measurements will get you far more sensitive to curvature than the physical measurements will. All right, so what happened? So I picked up the string of building a monochromatic light source, and I went down a whole bunch of rabbit holes. And one of them was, I'm going to take you on a little, go back to video here. One of them was to buy myself a classic Lapmaster helium lamp, okay? Write this down. 587 nanometers. That's the wavelength of a helium lamp. And, that's what it looks like on the camera. Okay? So, that gave me something which was the industry standard. And now I'm able to use that. We're going to look at how it works. And then I looked at the work that Adam did. And Adam basically did this. He took a portatrace light box, put germicidal bulbs in it. So Adam says, I think Robin's point was that you don't want a flat lap. You want a slightly convex lap because the tendency of hand lapping is to generate convex surfaces. Yes, I think. So hang on. Let me hang on this point here. I think that was a very specific result. I think my takeaway was from the whole thing was measure the workpiece and respond to what the workpiece is doing. And what you just said is a narrower case of that, which I totally agree with. So yeah, it's wicked cool. Back to where we were. So Adam did the germicidal bulbs and then the green filter. We're going to talk about green filters and in the portatrace. There's also the tricolor bulbs, which is the 5000K bulbs. If you did your homework and you looked in the presentation, you saw 3 lines on the spectrum, which is the phosphors making those 3 colors. That's to fool your eye into thinking that it was putting out white light. And what we did, I better be careful which fingers I use. What we did is I can't do this. We erased with a filter the 2 outer lines, leaving the inner line. So that's the trick on the tricolor bulbs with the green filter. The helium source generates a line at 587 nanometers, and then all the other lines are very far away and or very suppressed, which you saw in the spectrums for the industry standard helium bulb. So why do all this? One last point. Also, if you did your homework, you saw a laser and a ping pong ball. Okay, let's go in the dark here. So this is basically the ping pong ball is to diffuse the laser. Lasers are inherently monochromatic. In fact, they are sort of the standard of monochromatic. They generate one wavelength of light, period, full stop. As you can tell, this one's a green laser, okay? And this one, which, let's see, I'll point it down here. That's a red laser. So a laser generates a single wavelength by definition, because that's what's required to make a laser a laser. So these are our 5 light sources. So why do we care? So we care because properly used, yes, you are absolutely correct, Adam. I am trying to stay on the road. Laney Machine Tech, Adam says, diode lasers do vary a little in their wavelength during operation. That is absolutely true. But that variation for us is ridiculously meaningless. But it's true. And so do gas lasers. So anyway, this is an optical flat and an optical flat. So both of these things are as flat as we'll get in our lab, okay? When we put them together, the light will bounce off the bottom one. Oh, so Adam, I don't know if... So Adam asks, just wondering if you picked it up in the spectrometer measurements. The answer is no, because I wasn't looking for it. And I don't trust the time base in here to be super duper uber pooper dependable. Actually, it's not a time base in here. I just realized it's a diffraction grading, etc. So no, I haven't seen it. Not looking for it at the moment. So this guy is seeing quite nicely a bunch of fringes. This is why we're here. These lines. And what happens is if the light from the monochromatic source hits the bottom optical flat, it bounces up, goes through, and comes out. But there's another source of reflection, which is the light coming through and hitting the bottom of the top optical flat. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, hey, whoa, they're at the same place. They're in the same location. No, they're not. There's a layer of air between them, and I can prove that because if I push on this side, okay, I can make them get finer, and if I push on this side, I can make them get coarser. And what I'm doing is I'm making them more parallel by pushing over there. So there is a wedge of air between these two surfaces, and that wedge is anchoring down here. So down here they're touching, up here, actually it's over here, they're not quite touching, and we can mess around with them. So as the distance between these two optical flats changes from here to here, the distance changes, and it changes from, and let me see if I get this right, an odd multiple of quarter wavelengths of light to an even multiple of quarter wavelengths of light to an odd multiple to an even multiple to an odd multiple. And what happens is they cancel, they reinforce. They cancel, they reinforce. They cancel, they reinforce. So what you're really reading here is you're seeing the wedge of air between the two optical flats, which we don't care about. We only care about flatness. And in fact, that wedge of air is helping us make this measurement. Because if these two guys were perfectly parallel, you would have basically no fringes. Okay, so that's what's going on here. If we look straight down on this guy, as straight as we can, and the camera does do some distorting, these lines are straight. Okay, they're very straight. And that says that these surfaces are very parallel to each other. It does not say anything is flat. It says A is parallel to B. That's all it's saying. The top guy is parallel to the bottom guy. Now, we're accepting, we could do the three-plate method, which I've done, and have three optical flats, and if they're all parallel to each other, then they're all flat. And that's basically what we do. So we accept the fact that this is a flat reference. Okay, so why are we here? We're here to evaluate the monochromatic light source, not the optical flat. So we're going to use this little stack of optical flats to see how our monochromatic light source is doing. This is a helium light source. This is the industry standard, okay? If we turn on our computer and point our sensor, our LR1B sensor, at the helium light source, that's what we get. Now, I don't have enough hands to point, so you're just going to have to look over on the right side of the screen, and you see that there's a spike. And it's got an interesting shape, but that's more due to the sensor than anything. There's a spike at about 587. It comes up as about 590-ish on the screen. Okay, and if I wave it around, okay, you see it changes. So that's that. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm just waving this around. So that's the helium light source. So get an eyeball full of... That's pretty funny. I hit it and it went almost dead parallel. See, that's what almost dead parallel looks like. You guys are very lucky to see that. All right. And if I go find my edge again, there we go. Okay. All right. So what we want you to look at is the contrast of these lines. Okay. This is industry standard. Now, let's move over to the first of the improvised light sources. Okay. Okay, this is the tricolor or the triphosphor bulbs and the green filter. And it's not bad, okay? Once again, let's just switch over here. And now we're going to switch over here. And to my eye, it's not quite as high a contrast, but it's totally usable. Okay. So this is the Portatrace light box with the tricolor bulbs. Now this one came with the tricolor bulbs. In other words, I didn't have to spend any dollars. It was the Portatrace light box, $0 spent, and then the filter material. So let's stop here for a second and look at the filter material. Here's the filter material. This was the breakthrough that I made in my experiments. This is a roll of Christmas decoration acetate. They call it acetate. It's not acetate. That I got off of Amazon. Okay, pretty inexpensive. I think I put the information in the presentation, and I used two layers of it. It's a 1 mil material, so 2 layers of the 1 mil material. You can see it's sticking out the top here. Okay, there it is. And that is the sum total. So the cost of this light box was, call it about $40. And I don't know, how do you account for the cost of the acetate? Because it's, not terribly expensive. So $45. I forgot what I said in the presentation. And you are generating enough monochromatic light to do your measurements. So now if we move over to the next experimental light box, this is the germicidal bulbs. And the germicidal bulbs are clear. There's no phosphor in them. So they generate a ton of UV, which is what their whole job in life is. Okay, so the germicidal bulb generates UV. It also generates those other nice lines. I believe one of those lines is a mercury line. It's the same as in the tricolor. It's the middle one, okay, of the 3 lines. So we do the same thing. We take now in the one that Grimsmo built, and I believe he was just following instructions, maybe from Adam. He put a thin UV filter first, and then the filter that Adam recommended. Now, this is where we depart. Adam picked out a Roscoe filter. Now, that Roscoe filter was was very low in its peak transmission, and it turns out that it's not as good as this cheapo green stuff, and that was the thing that just blew me away. So we have germicidal bulbs. I did not use the thin film UV layer because I measured this plastic and it's blocking the UV. So, yeah, thanks, Dennis. Appreciate it. The deadly evil UV is not coming out of here, so don't worry. Let's just use this to observe the fringes. And, as they say in the biz, voila, there it is. Works great. So let's sweep around, okay? Helium. Excuse me, tricolor bulbs with filter. And there's your germicidal bulbs. No, I did not. This one does not have the UV filter. Excuse me. I would intend to put the UV filter in here. I just didn't do it. From a safety standpoint, I don't need it. I would use it to preserve the filter from the UV attack, okay? So this is part of my rush just to get this thing up and running. So it does not have the thin film UV filter, which I have over there under the table. So once again, this is germicidal bulbs, 2 layers of 1 mil Amazon wrap, as shown in my presentation. So you already have that if you did the homework. And then the diffuser, and that's it. And you will notice this electrical tape around the edges here. The UV filter is not needed because the plastic diffuser of the Portatrace does the job of the UV filter. measured, not presumed. Okay, so this does the job of the UV filter. UV does not get through this plastic. It was very interesting when I was looking at different materials. I did a lot more work than I've talked about. But one of the things, one of the materials which is really amazingly transparent as far as wavelengths is concerned is this Scotch tape. Okay, it's a nice diffuser, and stick this one in your toolbox. Okay, it's a nice diffuser, and it had like a totally flat transmission curve. Okay, I was actually pretty amazed. So that was pretty cool. So diffuser material, flat transmission curve. And there's some other materials in there. And there's some more stuff I'll add. So the bottom line here is that we get usable interference fringes from each of these results, okay? Some are better than others, but my contention is that the germicidal bulbs is not the best. In fact, from a strict power output point of view, it's much lower. And I did a measurement this morning. I'll be publishing it later today or tomorrow. It's lower than the tricolor bulbs by a significant margin. Okay, so I'm actually going to not recommend the germicidal bulbs, even though they have a narrower bandwidth. Okay. Very good. Yeah, I got to keep moving here. Okay, so you're awesome. Once again, let's look at the computer here. Okay, this is the tricolor bulbs. Okay, notice the bandwidth. It's not a line. It's got some bandwidth to it. Now I'm going to switch over, and here's what I'm doing, so that you know what I'm doing, right? Now I'm going to switch over to the germicidal. Look at the bandwidth. Hang on, I got to fix something's going on with my computer here. Okay. Germicidal, tricolor. It's not as narrow. So the phosphor is definitely generating some stuff. And probably that line, this is probably the mercury line, and the mercury line is kind of there, and the phosphor is right next to it. So this is not perfect. In other words, the tricolor bulbs seem to be quite a compromise as far as bandwidth is concerned. You want a nice spike, but it's a little wider. I see the question in the question queue. I'll get to it in a sec. Now, again, let's go back to our industry standard. Here's helium, okay? You get that nice spike. It looks very clean. Let's go back to germicidal. There's germicidal. Those look alike, okay? That's because it's an unmolested emission from a gas, okay? And as soon as we go to the phosphor, it broadens it out because, well, that's what they wanted to do. But it doesn't seem to grossly negatively affect the usefulness of this. And that is pretty freaking cool. So while we're here, I'm just going to swing around and grab, this is the green laser, okay? I'm just going to put the green laser in front of the sensor and turn it on. Look at that. Okay, pretty nice. So let's go and see what the green laser can do for us as far as looking at fringes. And then I'm going to make another recommendation. I see it's coming up to 140. All right. Look at that. Okay. So, in fact, if I'm going to turn off the other sources here because I want you to believe me. I can get away from the helium. No, I'm going to turn off helium also. Hang on. Stand by. Oop, there's my switch. All right. Everything's off except the laser. Okay. Look at that. So, but look at the equipment. You could have this. You could have this in your little emergency tool pouch, and voila, it's not convenient, right? You can't. I shouldn't say it's not convenient. It's not great. You can't illuminate a big area, but it absolutely works. It's huge. And this thing is a $35 self-contained. It's meant to be a laser sight for a firearm, which, by the way, it's pretty, I wouldn't use it for that, but that's me. But from a usefulness point of view for what we're doing, it's awesome. So the takeaway here is that if you want something quick and dirty and you don't want to spend a lot of money and you don't want to do anything, get this. And that's on Amazon. I haven't put the order number for this on there, but you should be able to find it pretty easily. And finally, I didn't diffuse the red laser, so let's see if we can't borrow the diffuser. Okay, let's see if we could turn on some red laser light here. Oops. Yeah, this is going to be maybe hard to do. Yeah, it's a little hard to do. So there you go. And we're even seeing, let's see, are all of our light sources off? Yeah, we're even seeing some lines in there, but those lines are from whatever is reflecting around in my room. So they're not necessarily reliable. And with that, we'll take a question, and then we're going to bring in Adam. Tuck Garage asks, how do you measure the distance between the lines accurately when taking measurements? So the distance between the lines is not important. The distance between the lines tells you about the angle of the air wedge between the optical flats. It's the shape of the lines. And I'll let Adam dig into that. But if you do have more questions, put them in the question box. Adam, go ahead and shoot me your request to be on the video, and we'll get this sucker going. How do you like that? Crazy couple of days getting all this stuff set up. So if you guys have questions, shoot them in there. I'm very pleased with this isn't a full product review, but I'm very pleased with the LR1B from ASEC Instruments. No manual. I mean, you really have to figure things out. There he is.
Hi.
Can I hear you?
Can you?
Oh, you're on my headphones. That's why. Hang on.
Hello.
I heard you. I think there's a little lag, but we'll take it.
I can hear you crystal clear. Much better.
Yeah, now it's perfect. Hi. So, how'd you like how I macerated your design?
I think it's awesome. So I was looking up, I had intended to get some kind of a spectrometer to do these kinds of tests to verify the information, but they're like $1,000. So I could not justify it. So I'm very, very happy that you were able to do it.
Yeah, this was about $800.
Yeah.
And I have other things I want to use it for, so I was able to, you know how that justifying thing goes. I was able to justify it. And it was pretty eye-opening when I started actually seeing what was going on.
I think the things that really stand out for me, so one is that, let me explain how I arrived at the Roscoe Lux filter for doing this. So I bought a swatch that has all of their filters in it. And the really cool thing, let me see if I can find R90. R90, yeah. So there's the R90. Right.
Yep.
And the cool thing is that it comes with with spectra for each filter.
That's really nice.
Yeah, that's really rare for like something like this, right? And so looking at this, this is the one that I found that had the closest spectral frequency to the mercury wavelength, the green wavelength that I wanted to isolate. But you can see that it has like 20% transmission. And it's like 30 nanometers or something away from the peak of the mercury wavelength. So I knew at the time that it wasn't ideal, but it was the closest thing that I could get where I knew what the spectral data was beforehand, because I couldn't do the experimental test stuff. So, and I emailed the Roscoe Lux people and they said, yeah, that's probably the best thing, but they're like, nobody uses our filters for this reason. So you're like, what are you doing? So I'm really glad that the Amazon filter worked better. That's a much easier choice, I think, a much easier option. And but it was a bit of a gamble, so I'm glad that it paid out.
Yeah, I think I paid, I forget how much I paid for that particular roll. And then I went back to Amazon and I looked around because that was a 1 mil thickness. And I found another roll that was advertised as being a 2 mil. I'm like, I'll try that. So this was $9. Okay, it's a narrower roll, and I measured it just this morning. It's 1 mil thick, and it's exactly the same spectrum. So whatever the recipe is for green seems to be pretty consistent, at least. I think it's 520 was the measured peak, and between the two rolls, if you put me in a court of law and told me to swear that they were from different manufacturers, I couldn't do it. It probably came off the same. Yeah, the same.
So how did you measure the spectral peak of the Amazon filter? Did you shine white light through it and then see where the peak was?
Yeah, let me show you. In my lab, where's the turnaround button? There it is. So I have a microscope here. We have to talk about microscopes. I don't know if you've ever heard of this company. This is a company called Nikon. Okay. Now you know who you're dealing with. Okay. But I have an illuminator here, and it's like a projector bulb. It's a halogen bulb.
Oh.
So then the illuminator has its fiber optic ring here. So I just used that as my white light source, and then I took my chopstick. You have to get a certified chopstick, by the way. You can't do this with just any chopstick. And I put it in my vise here, and that's where the tape came from. So the microscope illuminator over the sensor, that was my white light source. And then the software, you go over here and you click a button which says grab your baseline spectrum, and then there's a checkbox here which is measure measure ABS, which of course means anti-lock braking system, but they mean it to mean absorption. So a couple of clicky clicks and you get an absorption curve. Now, of course, it's upside down from the curve we want, but who cares? So that's how I measured it, and it works spectacularly. I could probably do it right now, but I only have one hand.
I mean, that makes sense to me. So 520 nanometers is what you measured. The R90 filter also has a peak at 520 nanometers, whereas the mercury wavelength is like 546. So these two filters have the same band pass, but the R90 has significantly lower transmission, which is why you needed to double up, right? The more you put on there, right, the more you filter.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what's really going on, is that you are filtering less of the light with that filter.
So this was the Roscoe 91,
and I measured it at 498. Okay. 520 would be a little further to the east here. I do not have the Roscoe R90 on hand. And then the Amazon 1 mil, is this the one? Hang on. Yeah. So then the Amazon, that was a daylight measurement. This was using the absorption measurement. So that is 519.39. So that's basically 519 on the Amazon one. And then the second Amazon one was basically the same.
Cool.
Anyway, all of these curves, except for two that I took this morning, which is the new film, they're all in my presentation. I added those. So I would like to get some of the R90 just to complete my, just for completeness. And maybe I should get the swatches from Roscoe, because that's plenty enough. The swatch is plenty enough to put on my hack job transmission system here.
Also available on Amazon, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look for it. We have a question.
So the other thing was that's like super useful information is that the UV is blocked by the diffusion filter, and I guess it makes sense because there's some plastics that are just inherently opaque to UV, like polycarbonate. So maybe that's what it's made out of. But that's awesome.
Yeah. Now I would still do it, but not from a performance point of view, from protecting the filter point of view. So, if you're sitting there bombarding a filter with UV, pretty hard and strong UV for a long time, you may make that filter fade. That's what I at least imagined. So that I would still put the thin film filter, the color filter, and then the plastic diffuser from the Portatrace on top of it. But from a safety point of view, it's like, don't worry about it. I mean, it's you're okay. Let's see. We have a question from Tuck Garage. Can you just double layer the film to get 2 mil thick? Would that make a noticeable difference? So that's what I've been doing. I used 2 layers of the 1 mil material anyway, and the only reason I used it was sort of intuitive. I don't have a hard analytic answer to that. Yes, you can. I could use 4 layers, and I don't think there's a point of diminishing returns where it's not improving the performance. So,
can you explain? Because I was reading the PowerPoint and your figure of merit monochromicity. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I pulled that out of my head. That was just sort of a way to quantify monochromicity. So the 2 things you care about, I imagined, were the fact that you didn't have any confounding lines near the line you're using. Because if you did, you would get fringe patterns that were confusing. You'd get either fat fringes or you'd get multiple fringes. So you don't want that. So that was the distance to the nearest line. That was that number. And then the other one was just the amplitude of the peak of the line you're interested in to the amplitude of the next strongest thing. So I figured those were 2 things that measured if you had a monochromatic light source, and then I multiplied them together, and you end up with this number where if the number is big, I arbitrarily said it has high monochromicity. And there's one thing I didn't take into account, and I said this in the paper. The phosphor, the width of the line from the phosphor is in the tricolor you don't want the phosphor contributing to the light, because phosphors by their nature tend to be wide, and the gas emission tends to be narrow. And from looking at the shape of the curve with the spectrophotometer, it looks like the the green phosphor in that bulb is just the tiniest bit to the left of the mercury line, which is probably not an accident. So it doesn't seem to hurt anything by inspection, just by sitting here playing on the bench. But I haven't addressed that. So if you were doing something where that bandwidth was super important, then I would say germicidal bulbs, full stop. This is assuming you don't have, a helium source, because the germicidal bulb is a pure, it's, as you know, it's dead clear glass. So that mercury line is coming right out in your face, and so is the other stuff. But if that very narrow line width is not critical, and so far for, Harry homeowner, Harry optical flat owner here, it's probably not, then just the triphosphor bulbs. Now, here's the thing, I brought this up in the presentation. In 10 years from now, do I think I'm going to be able to buy fluorescent tricolor bulbs? I don't think so. I think they're going to be gone. But at 10 years from now, am I going to be able to buy those germicidal bulbs? I think so. I think they're going to stick around because of what they do. Everybody's LED this and LED that. Well, if you're going for something monochromatic, LEDs suck, because a standard LED is not narrow. It's kind of wide-ish. Now, I did hear some. I think you did an LED experiment, right, with an LED flashlight.
I've done a number of LED. I've tried a number of LEDs. Yeah.
And they kind of work. I mean, they sort of, you can get them to sort of work. Warren asks, where is this presentation? If you go to the link in my bio, to all my links, and you go to the monochromatic rabbit hole, and you click that link, at the top of that page is a link to the presentation. You have to go 3 links deep, but it's there.
So I think part of this is like we decide what exactly it is that we want out of the monochromatic light source. So your monochromicity is like one parameter, and the parameter that I was interested in was the narrowness of the band. So because that affects accuracy of the measurement. And the other one is how large of an area you can cover.
That is that's a super important point, because the big deficiency of the most expedient solution is that you really have to move it around and mentally scan the image, right? Remember what you're seeing, because it's such a such a small area. Whereas any of these solutions, the portatraces or the helium, you get at least a decent size area, which I think for anything we're going to be doing is plenty.
So the thing that I've been working on, which is I mentioned, is the Fizeau interferometer, and my desired design for that uses a simple diode laser. In order to clean it up, you have to send it through a spatial filter, so you get a real Gaussian output. But then you got a true single point, like single order monochromatic coherent light that goes into a collimating lens. So you can really widen the beam. So at the same time that you're giving yourself, you no longer have to have the surfaces in intimate contact, you're also widening the beam. So basically you can measure anything that's as big as your collimating lens. And so I think this is kind of the best of both worlds, where you have crazy monochromicity or whatever, high intensity, single wavelength light, but you can also, basically how large of an area you can cover is based on how much money you want to spend on your collimating lens.
Well, the other thing I question about, and I don't have a conclusion here, about the laser diode approach, as far as monochromicity, it's the best, it's hands down, it's the best solution. But you now are dealing with 5 milliwatts of optical power, and you're spreading it over a pretty big area. Whereas if I had to guess how much optical power we're dealing with in these gas emission sources, probably, well, certainly a couple of watts of optical power, maybe. Okay, well, that's a factor of 1,000 in terms of just luminance, luminosity, not luminance, luminosity. So that would be a concern there, unless, of course, you throw the hood over and you're looking, and you're literally looking into the light source. So maybe it doesn't matter so much. I'm not sure.
I think that you would, from a safety standpoint, I think that you would need to attenuate it considerably. And I think I would also caution against using green diode lasers, which I think are UV that is passed through a crystal, which gives you the green. So there's actually quite a lot of, potentially damaging light in that source.
I think I'm less concerned about it because it's so easy to filter out the UV. You have to work really hard to let UV go through something. Nice quartz glass, sure, but any plastic, I shouldn't say any plastic, that's a little of an overreach, but certainly simple polycarbonate, it's not going through. So I'm a little less concerned about that, but I'm more concerned about just the power available. Like when I first started playing with the lasers, which was actually a couple of years ago, to do this, I was looking for a way to spread it more. And I realized even if I did that, I've just taken milliwatts and spread it over a bigger area. So it's a intensity problem.
Well, Spencer, that was really very interesting. Thank you for doing all of that work, I gotta say. And what I would be interested in, I had kind of mentioned that I wanted to make a YouTube video showing my solutions. And so I don't know what you're planning on doing with this data, but maybe we could collaborate on that video and show all of it together. Or I don't know if you wanted to do your own.
I'm not going to do my own. I would be more happy, actually. Even if I thought I was going to do my own, I'd be more happy to just collaborate with you. I think you're further down the road on this. If I've made any contributions to the art, so be it. I'm happy to support you on a video.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, that'd be great. And if the bottom line, I think already we have a solution that, if somebody has a $50 budget, they're in. They've got a solution. I think the big issue from a industry standpoint or even a maker standpoint going forward is that one day the fluorescent bulbs are just not going to be available. They're going away. But the germicidal bulbs may extend our lifetime of this design, as long as everybody plays nice and understands what they're dealing with.
We should start stockpiling bulbs.
I don't want to do that. I think there's always going to be a solution. And although I'll tell you, the germicidals, you look at them and you realize, as long as you understand what you're dealing with and you treat it with respect. Do I have one handy? Yeah, let me grab one. Hang on.
The one I'm actually more concerned about losing, then the fluorescents and germicidals are the low pressure sodium bulbs. They're actually almost gone already.
Those are already, yes. That's why I didn't even consider them. I have a neighbor down the street who works for, I'll just say he works for a major lighting company, right? That manufactures stuff. And I said to him, hey, I'm interested in getting this. And this was a couple of years ago. I said, I'm interested in getting some low pressure sodium lamps. And he says, oh, I can help you out with that, blah, 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 blah. So he shoots me a whole bunch of links and says, yeah, you're all set. And I said, sir, honorable sir, those are all high pressure sodium lights. He said, oh, let me check. And he comes back to me and he says, they are gone from a industrial point of view. Dennis says, dude, there's people with stockpiles of bulbs asking a king's ransom for them. A king's ransom. Yeah, I know. I don't want to go down that road. But for everybody watching, here's the germicidal bulb, and it actually has the warning right on it. It says, caution, protect your eyes and skin. But the cool thing is there's your heater on one end, and there's your heater on the other end. And if you look real close, you'll see a little ball of, well, probably mercury kicking around in there. There it is. And otherwise it's dead clear, and it's the good quality glass to allow the UV to get through. So that's the UV bulb. I think these are going to be around a lot longer. Especially if we keep coming up with viruses to pass around, you know what I'm saying?
We actually did try that. I took one of the monochromatic porta-trace light things, and I took all the filters off and just tried to use that to sanitize some like high touch equipment.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like based on the amount of UV that's pumped out, like you kind of have to leave leave stuff in there for quite some time.
I'm going to not comment on any of the biological stuff for two reasons. Number one, I don't want anybody to take this as authoritative. And number two, I'm married to somebody who's downstairs who is authoritative, and I'm not going to bring it up. So if I say anything about anything biological, I could get in trouble. So I'm not doing that. But anyway, yeah. I think those will be around for a while. And Adam, let me just say thanks for just jumping in here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Again, thanks for doing all this work, man. I mean, this is exactly what our community is about. And yeah, just kind of bouncing off of each other and improving the general knowledge. I mean, this is all stuff that didn't exist even, I don't know, a year ago, right? This knowledge didn't exist. So this is awesome.
Well, thank you for thanking me, but yeah, this will lead to something. I don't know. I have no idea what. I mean, I want to do some lapping. I want to do some, messing around. There's another gentleman in our community who is a true optics guy, and I'm trying to get him. I'm trying to rope him in to do a live with us. Maybe teach us some things. I think I won't mention his name, but he was. Let's just say he wasn't available when I asked him, so maybe he'll be available in the not too distant future. So maybe we could learn how to do some things at an optical level. I mean, I'll tell you what, if we can make flat surfaces on an optical level, you'd think we can get the bottom of our vices, burr free. Would you think that? I don't know. Okay, guys, listen, if there's any questions, let's get them. We're already over time. If you have a good one, put it in the thing. Otherwise, we're going to wrap the sucker up. We already had way too much fun than is actually legal in the state of California. I checked. And I'm not seeing anything.
Well, there was just Tuck Garage's question from way back in the day about measuring the distance between lines accurately when taking measurements.
Oh, so why don't you address that?
So you don't need to measure the distance accurately. You're really just interested in, right? It's the ratio between the distance between two adjacent fringes and the curvature of an individual fringe. That's what you're looking for. And so a lot of times what you'll have is like a filar micrometer is common in like a proper physo interferometer. And a filar micrometer it's a microscope eyepiece that has a very thin line in it that has a micrometer adjustment. So you can zero out the line on one part of a fringe and then measure over, right? Measure the, from the peak of a fringe to, the ends. And that's how you would get your really close comparison. So the units don't matter, just the ratio. I mean, you could measure in angstroms, meters, miles, it doesn't matter. Just the ratio matters.
And the only thing I'll add to that is that you have to know what light source you're using. So that's why I put that little label on my helium light source. So I know it's 587.6 nanometers. So if I ever want to reduce that ratio to an absolute number, I have to know that. So if I'm using the mercury line, it's a different number. So I have to know what that is. And I think for what we're going to do, and we being our little community here, I think we care about flat or not flat. Is it curved? How's it curved? I don't think we're quantifying right now. And we're there, as long as you got a monochromatic light source, you got an optical flat, you're in it to win it.
Just to mention too that we usually talk about monochromatic light sources and optical flats for getting things dead flat, but that's because we operate in a machining world, right? Whereas you can also use exactly the same methods to get precision curvatures, where you've got, instead of parallel lines, you've got rings, and the rings decrease in their spacing as you go out if it's a smooth curvature. So by counting the number of rings, you can deduce the curvature. And it's like outside of the scope of what we're doing here, but just to say that, these same techniques can be used to measure a whole range of different geometries. We just typically measure flat. It's also the easiest one to explain.
That's true. I bet you we can come up with some software now that can look at an image and pick up all those fringes and all the curves and tell it what wavelength you were using, and it could probably just convert the data to something useful.
Check out Open Fringe. That's
Look
an
at
open source project for doing exactly that thing.
Sometimes I wonder if I'm actually from the future and I don't know it. Open Fringe, awesome.
Fringe.
That's cool.
So now you got homework, Spencer.
I have homework. I will be on Open Fringe tonight, late at night, with my phone in my face, like we all are, I think.
All right, man, it's Mother's Day, and I got to get out of here.
Yeah, I got to go spend some time with the most important person in this here building. So thanks, everyone. Thank you, Adam. You're always fun. We'll do it again. We'll be here next week, same bad time, same bad channel, unless something really bad happens. Sunday, 1300 Eastern Time, 17 Greenwich Mean Time. And if you need flat rocks, go to pfg.gg, read about them, and click the purchase link. And we'll keep doing weird flat things, because flat things. Take care, guys. Have fun. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.